republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. At this point, we'll officially call it to order. With the approval of the agenda, we do have 3 or 4 additions after approval prior to public comments. We do have a good news section. Finally, we get to bring some good news back to Stokes County's board meetings. And then under action B, we will have the approval of the personnel report added. And under C, policy 2130, proposed regulation for administrative policies. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? So moved. Ms. Tedder, that was a very clear and concise aye. Okay, good news. Dr. Rice, I think you have something to enlighten us.
Well, it's been a while since we've done good news because usually we bring people out from schools and celebrate those items. But I wanted to recognize some people tonight in a very, that's kind of unusual, but it's for a purpose. The first person that I would like to recognize tonight has been absolutely amazing the last 6 months. I'd like to ask Karen Barker to come up. Karen is our Director of Media and Technology. When COVID first started, she got busy ordering technology for our students and teachers. If you'll just kind of come up right here, I want to be by the mic so that people can hear, but I'll get over and give you your certificate in a second. She has problem solved, troubleshooted, shot, I'm not sure. She has been a troubleshooter from the beginning, and it's really been amazing everything that she has done. If you remember, 4 short years ago, we had just gotten 350 Chromebooks at North Stokes, and that's all we had as a district. And now every kid in pre-kindergarten through 12th grade through 13th grade at the super seniors at the early college all have Chromebooks, and basically with the same staff that we've had, which may be a budget item to consider in the future to add more technology people. But at this time, they've just gone over and above making this happen, setting up all these new Chromebooks at the beginning of the year, and I just want to recognize her for outstanding performance during COVID-19. If you'll stay there, the second person I want to recognize tonight is Miss Lisa Dillon. With our school nutrition department, as I sent you the update today, this does not have today's numbers in it. But since this COVID-19 has started, they have distributed 363,843 meals. They have kept our school nutrition department paid, not bankrupt, and everyone's got a paycheck this entire time. And this has been through people going back and forth on leave. Every time a new thing came out, we had to revamp, redo a schedule, come out, and I just wanted to recognize her for outstanding performance during COVID-19 for all the hard work she's done. Another person I want to recognize tonight is Mr. Ricky Goins. Ricky, if you'd come up. Again, I know this is unusual and probably making these people very uncomfortable. But we still have maintenance going on at our schools right now. And not only do we have maintenance going on, we have implemented all new cleaning procedures, new cleaning equipment. As I sat here as superintendent, heartbroken that we didn't have, when people reneged on our cleaning supplies and saying that we were going to have to change our course, I think Ricky took it personally. And he got on the horn and started putting pressure on people. And when he found a couple for sale, he started putting pressure on other people, telling them that we're going to change business, that we won't stuff. And he's got the things here that we needed. And in addition to installing hand sanitizing stations and getting our backpacks and implementing a cleaning program and training people, he's not let our projects fall, our new construction projects. have gone on as planned. Our renovations, all of our regular projects have gone on without a hitch, in addition to everything else he's done. And I just want to thank him again for outstanding performance during COVID-19. And the last one I want to recognize tonight is Dr. Taylor. And again, I know I'm embarrassing people right now, but the amount of work that he has done in the last 6 months has been absolutely amazing. How do you have driver's ed when you can't be together? Well, he figured out a way so that kids would not be delinquent in getting their license when they turn 16. He found a way to, I think, get 98 or 88 people through driver's ed this summer and implemented a driving program for them when we could get back in the car so that they had their classwork done, they got their behind-the-wheel training done, so that they're not a delay when we came back to school and being 100 people behind. Again, worked with all of our building projects and all that, in addition to taking the lead with all the cleaning measures that's gone into our schools, and again, not letting any of his normal jobs drop as we've added all of this new COVID stuff. And again, he has a lot to do with this whole group getting everything done, and I just want to thank him as well.
Thank you, sir.
And y'all are kind of hop there together, Miss Jessup and the board, if y'all want to stand 6 feet apart, let me get a picture. We haven't tried this with 6
Ms.
feet
Jessup,
apart.
I think you're gonna have to go across the street if you want to widen.
I think you're exactly right, Mr. Rogers. Okay.
As I sit in some virtual superintendent meetings with people around the state, there's a lot of times there's panicked superintendents, and I've never felt that panic thanks to the team that we have to make all of this work. So I just wanted to publicly say thank y'all tonight for those of y'all that have put in all these, and everybody has put in all these extra hours, but these have made it possible to bring kids back into our buildings. And so I'm very grateful.
And I think I'll speak on behalf of the board. These people have gone above and beyond the call to do what's necessary to get Stokes County schools rolling in a positive direction again. But they're just a cog in the wheel. For everyone that we were able to acknowledge their great benefits, their entire staff made it happen just as well. They are the example of leadership, and the people they work for are the example of what you want your school systems to look like. So for that, for every department in Stokes County, not just the ones that were represented in Dr. Taylor Hoffman, thank you on behalf of the board. Y'all have made this possible. Okay, public comments.
Mr. Rogers,
Yes, ma'am.
could you see if Miss Barker could adjust the audio, because the attendees are having a very hard time hearing. We have a lot of visitors this evening and they can't hear you as well as I can.
I had to turn the audio down on this because I'm still getting a lot of feedback.
Maybe if you mute that one, and I'll have
Use
this
this one and try this one.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Can y'all hear this okay? If everybody give Ms. Barker a thumbs up.
Well, how about this? Does Tanner, can you hear me better now?
Okay, Ms. Miller said no.
Nothing changed.
I heard that better.
Yes, but you should have been on this side of it. Is that better?
It might be part muffled because of the mask as well.
Is that better? Okay. Ms.
Okay, they say they can hear a little bit better.
Okay. The agenda for each regular monthly meeting will include a time period for citizens to address the Board of Education through public comment. Prior to each meeting, a form will be available for any individual or group to indicate a desire to address the Board of Education and the topic to be addressed. A 3-minute time limit will apply to each speaker. Groups are to select one spokesperson to address the board on the group's behalf. Members of the Board of Education will not respond to individuals who address the Board of Education except to request clarification if needed. Only in cases of emergency will information received during this presentation be acted upon at the time of the presentation. Grievances, complaints, or concerns related to individual school personnel or students will not be heard at this forum. Other channels have been established for the consideration and disposition of a grievance, complaint, or any individual or group, the policies and procedures for this purpose. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, we have one person, Mary Lynn Stone.
And Mr. Rose, if you'll make sure that microphone is on.
Good afternoon, and thank you for allowing me to speak with you this evening. And I feel a little bit awkward because I don't know that if I've in fact been chosen by elementary educators to speak on their behalf. I do know that I have been asked to speak for some people that I work with at Mount Olive Elementary regarding our school planning time. And thinking that you're tonight going to be in consideration of the new schedule, I just want to present some things to you. And I hope this isn't any way taken as complaining. This is trying my best to give you insight what the elementary folks are facing. You've probably already heard, you've done a survey, and we thank you for taking that survey. We really appreciate the time and the opportunity that you've given and the attention to that detail. In addition to the responses that you have on the survey, for a moment, I want you to try to picture in your mind a classroom of 18 kindergartners and sitting there waiting for their teacher to talk to them. Some of them just woke up, some of them are still in their PJs, and some of them are sitting in the classroom. And then they had all the audio that you guys just experienced. They had the muffling, they had the microphone problems, the double speakers, because I have that all the time when I put my Chromebook on with my desktop. And then so you have to troubleshoot and get that taken care of. In the meantime, you've lost half of your kindergartners, if not more. I teach 5th grade, and I know I'm losing my 5th graders' attention. I'm having to practically do cartwheels in my planning and my scheduling to meet the needs of this new crisis that we're facing. And what I ask with you tonight, as you consider going back to school, Plan A, or staying with Plan B, is to please consider the limited time that elementary educators have to prepare for these wonderful children that we find a great honor to teach. In the morning, we no longer have planning because students have to come directly to our classroom. Our planning time is often afforded about 40 minutes, but in that 40 minutes, we have scheduled meetings or phone calls or responding to emails. So that planning and the prayer that I so admire, that prayer because teachers need planning, that planning we are not hardly given with this way the schedule is right now. We are to be at work at 7:15 in the morning. Sometimes we get there and our students are already waiting in the hall for us. So we go from 7:15 in the morning and we're supposed to leave at 2:45. That's impossible. We're there for hours and hours afterward because throughout the day, even lunchtime, I spend answering emails, checking work that's been submitted and who I have to respond to, who I have to return Google Forms to, and who I have to make sure understands the lessons or is able to download the video. I pulled up one email today, one of well over 100. None of them were bad. They were all good questions from loving parents and from caring students. But these emails require a back and forth and a back and forth and a back and forth. In the very last email, I got together to present to you tonight, and I was so busy, I didn't have time to print it. I did get it, I composed it, but I didn't even have time, and my list of things here is just so quickly written, and this is not normally how I do things. I don't know if you guys are familiar with elementary school teachers. I see many faces in here that are. We are planners, and a lot of us are perfectionists, and we really want to make our lessons presentable and effective. And right now, we feel so ineffective because of the limited amount of planning. And I'll close with my 3 solutions to my concerns. One would be to have a day of planning, a flex day, which I know several other counties are using to help their teachers. 2, in this time of crisis, would it be possible to take our 3 elementary curriculum coordinators and turn them into our virtual technology teachers, just in the time of this crisis? Or 3, at the very least, we need 1 hour extra of planning a day. And that would entail for our school, leaving instead of 2:20, dismissing our students, but dismissing them at 1:20. So we at least have that 1 hour. So those are the 3 solutions that some people at our school have come up with. And there are probably many more that you're considering. But when you do your finalizations on considering what's best for these elementary children, we do realize they should be back in the classroom. But we also realize that's an impossibility. So please afford our teachers. Please, I implore upon you to afford our teachers more planning time. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All right, moving on to the consent agenda. Approval of the work session minutes for August 31st, 2020, and approval of the fundraising request.
Before we approve that on the consent agenda, if we would just take a look at one, I just think there's a date that's wrong on the fundraising request. I spoke to Dr. Rice about that. He thought the date was wrong for Mount Olive. It should be January 2021, February 2021. Is that what you're talking to, Dr. Rice?
I believe that would be correct, that instead of saying January 2020, it would say January 2021.
So that was just the only correction, but I did think that I would bring that forward. It was wrong. It's just probably a misprint.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve with that change made?
I'll make a motion to approve with the recommended change.
All right, thank you, Ms. Knight. Do I have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Ms. Messick. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ms. Taylor? Okay. You're the farthest away and you're the clearest to hear, so. All right, thank you. Discussion agenda. Discussion of proof of learning CTE program. Mr. Rose.
Hello, board members. We have some changes in our testing program for CTE that I wanted to make you aware of. And we're referring to all of the models as our proofs of learning. So the first one I'll start with is one that you're most familiar with, and this would be our state mandated test. Typically, with CTE, this is a 100-question test, and we do it the same way that you all do the way that we do the end of grade testing. This would count as 20% of the final grade when they take the 100-question test. They have added some other components and possibilities, and I do have a spreadsheet that lists out which proof of learning each course is following. The second one that has come about is a performance-based measure. This is a semester-long culminating activity or project that comes with a rubric from the state. And I had met with all of our CTE teachers and Ms. Cape on August 13th to discuss these and how we might use them. And the recommendation with our PBMs was that we use this the same as the final exam, as it is a comprehensive project and a proof of learning for that entire course. And that we apply the rubric from the state and make that 20% of the final grade for that course, since it is a culminating project. Lastly, in lieu of credentials. We use that term in lieu of in the past because if a credential covered 80% of the content of the course and a student successfully completed that credential, they did not have to take the state mandated test. With this year, if there is an in lieu of credential, there is no state test, so that is no longer an option for us. So, in talking with the CTE teachers on August 13th and Ms. Kate, if Stokes County offers the credential and the student passes, they receive an A for the final exam grade. If the student fails the credential, they would then in turn take a teacher-made final exam that would count 20% of the grade. We do not offer every single one of these credentials. Some can be rather cost prohibitive. It is not required by the state that we offer them, but we try to offer as many as we can within our budget. If Stokes County does not offer the credential, we would in turn revert back to our exam exemption policy, and that is outlined in policy 4400 under the administrative procedures. If the student meets the exam exemption requirements, they would not have to take the teacher-made exam for that course. Otherwise, they would take the teacher-made exam, and that would count 20% of the final grade. So those are our options with these proofs of learning. It does meet the requirements with CTE, and I did want to just go over these with you and bring forth recommendations from our CTE teachers and let you know what these were, because it is substantially different than what we have done in the past. Do you all have any questions for me in regards to proofs of learning with CTE?
No, thank you, Doctor.
All right.
Any questions from anybody?
Uh,
Hold on.
I just wanted you to name a few of the CTE courses for some people that might not know what they are.
Sure.
Okay.
Just name off some of the courses that run.
Sure.
We have our nursing.
That the test should apply to.
Okay. So, and in lieu of credential, one would be nursing fundamentals.
So that would be the CNA.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
There are several of our agriculture classes for this year. They're going to have projects that would qualify under the performance-based measure. And then, you know, the state mandated test, I'm trying to think of some examples with that for you. Health science one. But now I do have the Excel document that lists out every single course and what that proof of learning would be.
Right. And that POL, is that proof of learning?
The PBM is a performance-based measure. Now, one that does get slightly odd that I did want to run by the board is with that nursing fundamentals. That is an in lieu of credential, so that if they pass the CNA test, they would not, you know, have to take the teacher-made exam. However, that course is one that's a little different. Often, we end up taking that credential after the course has been completed. So what we would like to do is if these students have signed up to take the CNA exam, then we would exempt them and then pass or fail. If they pass the credential, we would throw in the 100 for that exam and calculate it. If they did not, we would just calculate the first and second quarter grades or third and fourth quarter to get their final grade.
So, I understand that about the CNA and the nursing. What credential do they get for agricultural classes? I mean, what credential do they get?
Well, some of them would not be an in lieu of credential. There is a beef certification that they can add within agriculture. There are some other OSHA certifications that come about that help the students out some. Within our carpentry programs, there are NC, CER credentials, OSHA credentials, the green environment. is another one that they can add. So there's all types of credentials, work-based learning credentials that they can add.
And with these new carpentry programs that could come out, being maybe a carpentry apprentice or just a carpentry, just right out of the gate, so to speak.
They would have the credentials to move in with, the OSHA, again, with the green environment, and the NC-CER credentials to go into carpentry.
Well, thank you. That gives a lot of information that sometimes, we think we know, but I like to have the names of some of the courses and what credentials they can receive.
Are there a few credentials that your CTE teachers would say they wish were available? You know what I'm saying? Is that we should consider offering that are in higher demand that we need to look into? I know you mentioned like a financial barrier with some of them, but all right.
The one that is jumping out to me is in the drafting courses with Revit, but it's kind of got a mixed review from some of the teachers. Some of the teachers within that feel that that is more of a program than a curriculum.
Okay.
So, they're sort of shaky on saying that is 80% of what they covered in the class.
But it
because
does
they're
give them an
graded on the
extra,
program.
like, credential in a sense, or makes them more marketable. That's what I'm looking
Correct.
at. What are some things that would help a
You
student
know,
in the
as far
future?
as teachers requesting another credential, I have not had anyone to approach me. There have been, like I said, there was one that I pulled out, which was the drafting, to discuss with them, and got kind of mixed reviews of their thoughts on us offering that.
But as far as, like Ms. Messick mentioned, carpentry or anything, masonry, anything along those lines, automotive, that, could be considered an extra.
It would definitely give them a heads up over someone coming in, applying off the street for the job, if they see that they have various NATAB certifications or things of that nature. That would help.
Ms. Taylor, do you have anything?
No, sir.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Testing update. And might I say that it's an impressive mask.
Thank you very much.
Oh, my goodness.
Dr. Rice asked that I give a testing update basically to kind of get the board up to speed as to where we are at in regards to testing. With all the state mandated tests, students will be required to come face to face in order to be administered the test. So our first test that we'll be administering is the third grade BOG reading. And again, that is one that is actually not bound by the 95%. However, we strongly encourage students to come in and participate in that, because in that absence of their score, they would not be calculated in the growth for the schools. So right now our plan is to administer this test the week of the 28th of September. I have completed one online test training session and will complete the second one tomorrow, so that our staff is ready to be administered that. Our choice in the third week was primarily so that the elementary schools had a chance to finish their I-Ready assessments that will end this week, and so by doing so it gives the schools time to prepare those third graders. In addition to that, we also have a couple of assessments that our high schools are dealing with. The ACT, we are administering a makeup exam for a small group of students that was not able to take the exam in the spring due to the closure. So that will be taking place during the month of October. And then we also are preparing for the work keys exam at this point, even though that is not until November. But again, both of those are required that they come in to do a face-to-face. As part of that conversation, we have also reminded our high schools, as they're preparing for the EOCs and the final exams that will come up at the end of December, that they are to go ahead and give that information and let parents and students know that they will be required to come in to take the exam. So that is where we're up to at this point, and the state is still holding us to the 5 days for first semester. At this point, we have not been given an extension to go beyond 5 days windows, so schools are working towards that at this time.
I will say that I had a meeting last week with regional superintendents and a state board member that very much understand the need to extend that testing window for the final 5 days for each student in the building. And so they're hoping to work on that wording soon and address that before testing comes up. Because right now, with 50% capacity, unless you're running 2 shifts a day, it would be very difficult to do. So they are aware of that and are looking to fix that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion of bids for Mount Olive.
Yes, board members, in your packet, you should have the bid tabulation for the Mount Olive lighting project. We had the bid opening on September the 10th. As you can see, we had 3 bidders. I would recommend that we award the bid to PK Electric for $86,980. This would be replacing or retrofitting the light fixtures in all the classrooms at Mount Olive, including the gym and cafeteria. I know when we originally started this project, this was only going to be half the cost. The lighting retrofit is going to save us a tremendous amount of money, so this would be to complete the whole school. And I know this is out of the ordinary, but if the board could approve this, I move this to action tonight if possible.
All right. First, let's finish up discussion and we'll. Ms. Knight, do you have anything to add or questions?
When you say retrofit,
What this is the base, the main housing of the light fixture up in the ceiling will be left in place. The lens will be taken out, the ballast, the bulbs, and then the retrofit will be put in. From the ground looking up, it appears to be a new light fixture, but you're using the old housing to bolt it to.
okay,
And these will be LED lighting.
all right, sounds good, thank you.
Ms. Messick?
Will the cover be basically the same that it is now, or
No,
a new
ma'am.
cover?
No, ma'am.
Look like new lights?
It'll be more of a modern looking light fixture, kind of like a cover down the center. We put a couple up in the hallway to show the principal. She was happy with it. I think some of the staff that saw it there was happy with it. And but it'll look like a completely new fixture.
So it's all over the building, where there's an old light fixture now, a new one will be retrofitted there.
Yes. Everywhere except in the hallways where we did the ceiling upgrade last year, they have flat panel LEDs. The high ceilings, they will not get replaced because that has LED lighting. But everywhere else will get the retrofit kit.
And that's all LED lighting?
LED, yes ma'am.
Okay.
And the contractor will be working after hours and on weekends to get this completed. So he will start it immediately.
So will they be working on it when students are in the building?
No ma'am, after hours and on weekends.
Okay, that's good. That's really good. Can I ask one more question, not about this? Can
Go for it.
I know this is not on the agenda here, but has the sink been approved that we talked about?
The sink for the CTE building at West Stokes, we're waiting on a price from the contractor, but we feel like that can happen.
Okay.
We found a location, we met over there, and I found a location that's relatively be easy to install it.
Okay, good. So that's on.
It's on go, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, Ricky. You do a good job. Appreciate
Thank you.
it.
Ms. Tanner, do you have any questions for Mr. Goins?
He might have said this at the beginning of his presentation, but what was that budgeted amount that we had for the lighting project? Was that at 100?
The original amount was $114,000. That's what we had budgeted. That was for half the lighting fixtures in the beginning. We can replace them all for this amount, the $86,980.
$27,020 below budget. I like that.
Good deal.
And we don't have to do the second half.
Yes.
So
We still have to pay the architect out of this, but we're still coming in saving a lot of money.
Okay.
Well, it makes sense if you can retrofit it. Still looks good.
Any questions, any further questions, Ms. Tatter?
No, sir.
This time I'll take a motion to move it to action.
I make a motion to move it to action.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. It is now action D.
If I could, Mr. Rogers, I just wanted, I'm sure we all agree. Wanted to thank Mr. Goins and his staff and different ones that are just helping out with the fogging and cleaning and doing things a little outside of their scheduled time to help out. We
Oh, thank
appreciate
you. I'll pass that along to them.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Goins. Cobb Pediatric Services, Speech Services Limited contract.
Yes, board members, you should have in your packet an agreement with Cobb Pediatric Speech Services. This is to replace one of our speech therapists that was with Speech Center who resigned. And it is actually $1 cheaper an hour, which is good. We got that down a bit. But we would like to have this moved to approval. I know you'd like to have time to look at it, but this would require some students losing their services. It's extremely difficult to find speech therapists. And this person actually turned down a couple other places to be here with us. So if there's any way at all possible we could move it to approval, it would be appreciated. And of course, Mr. Johnson has reviewed it as well.
Mr. Johnson, before I poll the board for questions.
Yes, I have a little bit.
Okay. All right, Ms. Knight, any questions?
The Stepping Stones group, his prior history with them.
This company has worked with other school districts. I'm not sure that we've used them.
Not since I've been here. It may have been prior to me getting here. But it's a well-known practice. I've had surrounding counties that actually have used them.
Okay.
Ms. Messick?
I have no questions.
Ms. Tedder? Do you have any questions?
If favorable to the others, did Ms. Collins ask if we would send this to action? Or do we need to do that if?
She's asked to move it to action.
I'm sorry, what?
She has asked to move it to action, if the
Okay,
board
thank
so chooses. Any further questions from you?
No, sir.
At this time, we'll take a motion if y'all want to move it to action.
I make a motion to move the Stepping Stones speech therapist to action.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Knight. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, it is action
Thank you very much.
E. CARES Act update. Ms. Lynette, the floor is yours.
Okay, in August, I gave you an update of the money that we had received as of August the 3rd on the COVID-19 funding. And it's coming in at different times. We might receive one pot of money this week, and next week we have another one. So we're going to actually go ahead and update the remaining that we have as of September the 11th. So if you will look at attachment number 1, which is has the blue and yellow, this is the same information that was given to the board back in August, and that was reflected that we had received $2,164,296 in funding. And it's broken down by each PRC, and it's also a little bit of description of what the funds can be used for. That takes you through page 4. Attachment number 2, which is the yellow, it's got the color, the pink and the blue. On attachment number 2, this is the different PRCs of allotments of money that we've received since the first report was given to the board. And you can see here we've received some additional funding for exceptional children of $82,020. We received what they call the low wealth funding. We can expend that basically for the same reasons that we do our other low wealth allotment of $173,299. And then we received cybersecurity of $11,623. So the additional funding that had not been reported to you all is $266,942. When you add the two together, we've actually received $2,431,238. Now, if you will go to attachment number 3, I've actually taken each PRC and have broken down the expenditures of what we have purchased or obligated by the different PRCs. So, again, it goes all the way through each one of them. And even included, if you will go to page 4 under attachment number 3, I've included what we've used from other state and local funding. For example, we've used some driver ed money that was the state dollars. We've used state technology over and beyond the COVID revenue. We've used some state digital textbook money. Some of these expenditures actually happened before June 30th because I went back and looking at what we've expended since COVID started back in March. We've used county technology money, and I've explained under each one of the things that's purchased. Then I've summarized on page 5, also there what we've used local funding. And a lot of this items here would be the things that our maintenance and Dr. Taylor have purchased. But again, that's coming from local dollars. And all that matches our total expenditures or obligations of $2,269,135.28. If you will go to attachment number 4, I took each PRC and summarized. For example, if we had purchased batteries, let's say from 4 PRCs, I totaled all of those up to give you a total then of what we've expended for batteries, of what we expended for bleach, what we've expended for sanitizer stations, thermometers. So this particular attachment here shows you what's been expended or obligated for each as a summary. Then on page 7, I pulled out salary and benefits where we spent $1,440,000. A lot of that is obligated, especially with our CARES Act and the custodian salaries and benefits. That will be expended as we go on during the year. And then I pulled out technology separate because we've done a lot with technology. You can see we've spent overall $368, $316.77. So with these two sheets in summary, you will see that we have spent or obligated $2,269,135.28. Now, a lot of these funds have to be expended by December 30, not 31, as the state ruling, and 1 or 2 of them will extend into next school year. So we're working and trying to digitally decide. We met with Dr. Rice to see some of them. You'll see we have no expenditures. So we're in the process, he is, of trying to have meetings and decide with the eligible expenditures what route we're going to go with those particular ones. And some things have happened that we've not actually paid or obligated, but I had to have a stopping point. So any questions, because I know it's a lot of data.
Ms. Knight, do you have any initial questions?
Come back to me, Mike, please.
Okay. Ms. Messick?
I noticed that most of these, and I'm really glad for that we extend to 12/30/2020. Have any of the monies, the pots of monies, the date has already been
Expired?
Expired.
Yes,
What would that be?
PRC 154. Well, that was the state funds, the 226,064 had to be expended by June 30th. So that
was all of that spent?
Yes, ma'am, we spent all that, yes, ma'am.
I just, I see that most of it is from the state or federal government, and I am so thankful, and I know that most people would be, that the money was sent to the schools. Each school in North Carolina, received money from state and federal, and not sent to a third party, because when that happens, a lot of times you get a lot of red tape and strings attached. So I know the string that's attached here is your timeline, and then a lot of the money has to be spent in a specific area, a specific.
It's very restrictive on what some of it can be spent for.
Right.
It's very restrictive.
So if it is restrictive, do you, I guess you consult with that director to find out how's best to spend the money. I guess they make that decision, is that correct?
Between Dr. Rice, Dr. Taylor, and each director, basically, and then to input that they've read from principals on needs is how it's been basically decided. Dr. Rice, if you want to add any comments to that?
No, ma'am. Yeah, that sums it up very well.
I would like to see a lot of the technology equipment and all shared equally among faculty at the schools, and I know that's left up a lot. I know Dr. Rice lets the principals decide that, but you know, there's some people that inadvertently get left out, and I think that, you know, that's a shame, because now the money is available to buy a lot of equipment and technology that people can use for years to come, not just here during the COVID pandemic. So I would like to see more of that equally shared at the schools, that each teacher,
Some of that staff members.
yes, each staff member, you know, get their fair share.
And I will say, Chromebooks, most of those were purchased last spring. That's when we used some state dollars and the textbook digital. And it is a good thing that that was decided to happen, because you're talking to other school systems now, they're not able to get Chromebooks, and some of them's not expecting a shipment probably till November. So by us moving ahead and spending those dollars, even though we didn't have the COVID to do it, was the right thing to do.
Oh, I'm so glad we did.
Yeah.
And that every child pre-K to 12th grade gets a Chromebook. And so that is just wonderful for our county.
And you will
very
know
proud of that.
through this, we were able to, through some of the COVID money, able to buy cases for the Chromebooks, and
Yeah.
that's another plus for protection.
That's a very good
Yeah.
thing, because the only thing, you know, now is where is the money when some of these Chromebooks are coming back and they've been damaged? Because I know they're just piling up. And so where's going to come, where are we going to get the money to fix these that are coming back, you know, and they're torn up and somebody's got to fix them? It usually falls on the media coordinator and then I guess the people that work with you. Do they go to some of the schools and fix them, or?
Yes, we use our contracted hours for those folks out there to come out and repair those, as well as the tech fees that are collected also.
So do they just call into you and say, we have?
They should be putting it on the help desk like the normal help desk calls.
Oh, okay. And so somebody can come out and help people fix these Chromebooks that are being damaged.
Yes.
And the fees collected is there too, to help to pay for that as well.
Who collects those? The principal's supposed to see that the people pay the Chromebook damage. Okay. All right. Well, thank you. That surely helps.
Ms. Tanner?
I could hear most of that, and I think Ms. Messick asked, under PRC 163, which accounts for half of the funding we've received, and it only lists on page, excuse me,
The custodian salaries and technology.
one second. Okay, PRC 163 with 1.1 million, and then on page 1 on attachment 3, it only lists 2 things that were spent
Yes.
for that money. I mean, how did we address each thing under that on page 1 of this? And did principals get to have input on the resources that they needed for their schools?
Okay, what was decided on the PRC is the fact the restrictions are so restricted, and the fact of the spending and the bidding and going through all the process in order to obtain some of the things that was needed, it was almost impossible because Dr. Taylor and him, for example, had gone through some bidding process, the items would not have been available. So we decided to move state custodial salaries, because that is a line item that is eligible to be expended from this particular pot of money. Normally, they would have been paid on state PRC 003. So we have decided certain months, it will not be all, probably around 9 months of 35 custodians can actually be paid from this PRC. Then that freed up the state PRC 003, which is used for custodian and clerical. And as a result of that, then, we are going to move local clerical to state 003, and that will free up local dollars, which will give us more flexibility and not have to worry quite as much about the restrictions on bid and this kind of thing. Now, at this point, notice we've not really discussed what we plan to do as far as from the local dollars. Dr. Rogers, any comment more on that?
Well, we've been meeting basically until this week, weekly with principals, and we are constantly asking what their needs are and trying to meet those needs. And so we've asked repeatedly what their needs are, and again, Ms. Barker, maintenance staff, depending on what they've asked for, we've been able to meet those needs so far.
What are the main or top requests that you're hearing?
Well, we've got the webcams were a big one, to not be limited to a Chromebook, to have the webcams as well. We've invested in some swivels that are going to be, the training starting on that next week.
The 30th, they're going to be delivered to schools this week.
That is a camera system that hooks with an iPad that moves and follows the teacher around the room. And so, again, as needs have come up, we've investigated them, purchased them, and to try to meet their needs. Whether that's tape on the floor, whether that's, it depends on the school what they've asked for. That we've tried to Screencastify, other computer programs. We've asked them what they've needed for that as well, and we purchased those items. And so, as schools make requests, we look to honor those.
This is maybe getting off, but Screencastify, is that similar, or can it take the place of what I was asking you about earlier that had the issue last week?
No,
Not really.
It's more, the teacher can show, like, record the clicks and whatever on the screen, showing the kids how to maneuver on the screen and how to teach with that.
Gotcha. Okay.
Versus just seeing the teacher only.
Yeah. Okay.
So there would be still some local dollars that's yet to be decided now. If the board does a special request that you all need to share, we're, like I said, we're having discussions on all of that.
Well, and the other thing is, we know that we need to save some because we don't know what we're going to be facing in December, January, February yet either. So we're trying to make sure that we still have some money as other needs arise. If there's a need to buy more Chromebooks, if they start dying or whatever, we need that. We want to have the flexibility financially to be able to purchase those later. And so,
are we purchasing ahead with PPE or staying, you know what I mean, kind of having a...
I'm sorry, I couldn't understand.
Are we staying ahead of ordering PPE?
Yes, we are. I thought you said CTE, and I was like, okay, that makes sense. PPE makes a lot more sense, and yes, we're trying to stay ahead of that game.
Yes, we are placing almost on a weekly basis. We're trying to make sure that we have a supply on hand.
And I did reach out to Ms. Barker there about the webcams, because when they were sent out to the schools, not all the teachers got them. And I found that out, in a lot of the elementary schools. But she did say you would try your best to rectify that, right?
We've ordered more. Principals were sent out a survey asking webcams needed, and they would get the numbers back to me, so we've ordered more since then.
Okay. But a lot of times people think that a webcam you use that on your desktop, and that is really essential for a lot of people, whereas they sometimes, not the principals, but some people get that mixed up and think, well, you've got a camera on your Chromebook, so that should be good enough for you. But I want, as many people that want those webcams and can use them to have them.
Well, and we did as well. In the spring, we planned on Chromebooks being the camera, and then we realized that's very limiting, and that's why we asked the principals, how many do you need in your schools? So we provided that amount. We've gone back and said, okay, recount. Do you need more? We've ordered more. So again, we want people to have the equipment they need to be successful.
I do too. I especially want that.
But if there is something that you all are hearing that, is needed, you need to, share with us where we can check into it and do what we need to do while some of these funds are available.
Right.
I just wanted to bring a concern to the board that was mentioned to me, if that's okay, Mike. I noticed, state funding PRC 128 home and community Wi-Fi. There's some concerns of students that don't have internet, or either they're trying to go use a community hotspot, which they're thankful for, but I just wonder if we could look into some of our, maybe even a local community building, or some kind of time where there could be an indoor location rather than being in a car and doing whatever is needed if they are wanting to try to participate live, with the winter time coming to, like indoor options to connect live for those virtual students. And there may not be a lot of them. And then if the state's going to continue, I know we are with middle and...
We did get some good news last week on that. The original part that was, again, the restrictions are kind of funny. It's so we'll give you a car, but we won't buy gas for it. And so they will say you could use this one pot of money to buy hotspots, but we can't pay for the monthly service out of it. Well, a hotspot without service is a rock. Yeah. It's no good. But recently, last week, we found out that we are going to be able to get some hotspots with service for this year. So that's not come in yet, but we did find that out last week, that we may be able to try to help some of these families that don't have.
How many? Just on a needs basis, whoever reaches out?
Principals were given, to give me numbers, they gave me numbers of what they needed. I'm getting names now, so that, and I had to fill out this for the state. And, and so the number I requested, he said you should get in 10 to 15 business days, which should be the middle or the end of this week, that we would get them with the monthly fee included. So it is paired with Verizon as of now, so I should know more about the end of the week.
And that fee is paid for through the state, or our funding, or
through the NC Student Connect.
Okay. And is that window closed for people to reach out to principals? I mean, were they made aware?
Principals were made aware.
Okay. And parents were made aware of the option?
When we did our internet survey back earlier this year to say who has internet and who does not, they used that to determine the people that said they did not have internet as their numbers.
Okay.
And I will say, just in my area where the internet's not available, I purchased the hotspot personally, but I'm still not able to connect. It's so, even though we're going to maybe be able to offer, it still might be an issue as far as some connection, especially back this part of the county.
Okay, well, thank y'all. That's a good opportunity, though. So I'm just hoping everybody that needed it was contacted. That's all. Thank you.
And that is separate and beyond any of the monies that we've discussed here.
Yes.
Ms. Tatter, do you have anything else?
No, sir. That answers our questions.
Thank you, Ms. Moore.
Thank you.
Septic system for Pine Hall Elementary. Ricky, you just go synonymous with septic.
Yes. Well, board members, the first project we talked about, saving money. Now I need to talk about when we got to spend some money.
You can sit down now.
Okay. We did request $10,000 in the capital last year to repair the tank the septic tank at Pine Hall. It wasn't leaking at the time. We felt like we'd get a little bit more time out of it. But we did get a work order a few weeks ago. We thought the pipe was leaking. We went down, investigated, dug it out, realized the tank's leaking. I got our engineer involved that we've used in the past, Pew Creek Associates, to investigate it to see what repairs. The tank's been repaired several times over the years, just to see what repairs could be done. And he felt like that the repairs are over. We need to replace the tank. I asked for an estimate on this project. He said just estimating we'd probably be looking somewhere between $60,000 and $75,000. I talked with Ms. Moore about where we could get the money from, and we feel that we're going to have enough funds left over on the West Stokes track project to cover this. We've had one change order over there that was $8,000 from some unsuitable soils, but we're getting into, hopefully next week they'll be able to put the rubber down, and so we don't foresee any major change orders on that project in the future.
So what I'm requesting for the board tonight is that we could add this project to our capital list for $75,000.
So you need us to move it.
Yeah, move to action if you could.
Do we need to do that by way of action, or is it below your $100,000 spend for emergency, and then you just replenish it?
We just added it as an emergency project.
What have you received from the state on this? EPA or anything on this?
Well, first of all, we haven't received anything from the state. We have to get the plans drawn up from the engineer, submit those to the state for approval.
No, but have you received anything, notice of violation?
No, we have not. The school actually found it when he was mowing. So we haven't received any violations from the state.
It didn't fall in or anything.
No, just saw water around it.
Well, I do think we need to move it to action for a project, because you are going to have to do, you are going to have to seek bids on the project.
Yes.
Okay. So with that being said, the chair will entertain a motion to move the septic system issue at Pine Isle Elementary to action for
$75,000.
budgetary of $75,000. Do I have such a motion?
I make a motion to move it to action.
Thank you, Ms. Messick. Do I have a second?
I'll second that, Mr. Rogers.
All right, thank you, Ms. Knight. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you, board member.
All right. That would be item F.
Mr. Rogers,
Yes, ma'am.
I'd ask Karen if we could, the next part, move the microphone closer to Dr. Rice. Whatever she's speaking to, it's her computer or Chromebook, we can hear her very clearly. It's still a bit muffled from the rest.
She's saying, can we use your microphone to pick up him during the plan A? But the flip
I
side
can pull it
of
up here. But y'all would have to mute.
unmute that one. Turn your mic off and I'll turn mine off just in case. I'm telling you, I'll turn mine off. You may pick up him. Got it?
All right, can you hear me okay?
All right, can you hear me okay better?
I think that's better. What about the other attendees? Can you say something else, Dr. Rice?
Well, we're trying to find the feedback at this rate.
That one. Can you kill your mic?
Sure.
If everybody can hear that's all. Yeah.
Yours is still giving a little bit of feedback. Can you mute yours?
This one's muted now, that's the problem. That's the problem, it sounds like.
We'll give it green.
Ms. Tedder, can you hear me okay at this point?
That's much better.
All right, I am sitting in front of Ms. Barker's seat. All right, what, do you want to call the item?
All right, discussion of Governor Cooper's announcement for Plan A.
And Mr. Rogers, please bear with me. With the gravity of this situation and all that it entails, for the first time since I've been here as superintendent, I've written out some comments for tonight. So I'll just begin reading those and be happy to answer any questions after that. Board, on Thursday, September 17th, 2020, Governor Cooper announced school districts could choose Plan A for elementary students in the district on October 5th, 2020. Initially, I was thrilled. I want students back in the classroom as soon as possible. We have said that we're in uncharted waters and we are in unprecedented times. And I want a charted course. I want precedence. I want normal. I believe our parents want us back in school as soon as possible. At this time, 16% of the parents of our elementary students have chosen to be on Plan C, all remote. This tells me that 84% are saying that they want their children in school when available. As several of us went out to buildings on Friday, we started hearing some concerns from our teachers. A few principals contacted me and wanted to know how their teachers could express their concerns. I hope that in the 4 years I've been in Stokes County, I've shown the teachers and staff that I value their input. Many times I've used the expression, "We are smarter than me." As I began to tell people to contact me, I realized that probably only one group would be heard. So I decided to send an all-staff email to our elementary schools and ask a few short questions. At what school do you work? What is your current work assignment? A classroom teacher, elective teacher, or other, everyone else. And do you think Stokes County schools should go to Plan A or stay on Plan B? And then I asked to provide any comments or concerns. I estimate that 420 employees received the email. That includes everyone at the school, bus drivers, custodians, cafeteria workers, principals, the school resource officer, everyone that works at that school received the email in the all elementary school emails. Of those 420, 344 answered the survey, which is 82%. The survey results were nearly a tie. 49.13% said it should go with Plan A. 49.71% said B. 1.16% didn't vote, didn't choose an answer. Classroom teachers, 79 for A, 79 for B. Elective teachers, 11A, 21B. Others, 78A, 70B. Some left their classification as blank, and it was 1 and 1. Again, 4 people did not choose a plan. The comments were, when I copy and pasted them into a Word document, were about 32 pages. But they fell into several categories. We want students back. We want students back, but we are worried about the safety of not being able to socially distance. We need a virtual academy dedicated to our online learners. We don't know the health effects of Plan B yet. We had only been on it for 5 days. At that time, 4.5 days. We need to stop switching plans. Can we have a day to clean and plan? And the amount of extra planning required is hurting me mentally, physically, professionally, and personally. After reading the results, I met with the directors and Dr. Taylor. Then I met with the elementary principals. After all were given a chance to provide feedback, I would like to make the following recommendation. We have been on Plan B since September 14th, last Monday. I would like to remain on Plan B for the next 2 weeks until Friday, October 2nd. That would be 3 weeks total. This would allow us to monitor the numbers of the effect of COVID-19 in our schools under Plan B. If the numbers remain relatively stable, I would then recommend that elementary schools return to Plan A, or go to Plan A, on Tuesday, October 20th, 2020. That would be at the end of the 9 weeks, and a work day to allow people to move desks back into class. And I'm going to admit someone, sorry. That would be Tuesday, October 20th. This would give teachers, staff, and families time to plan for the transition back to school 5 days a week. For the first 9 weeks of school, this will have meant we had 1 week of orientation week, 3 weeks of Plan C, and 5 weeks of Plan B. This would address the need to have consistency and to provide time to monitor the health of our students and staff during Plan B. The other issue I want to address is the planning issue. This has been a real issue for many years. Elementary schools typically get between 200 to 250 minutes of planning per week. Middle schools typically get between 420 to 520 minutes of planning per week. High schools typically get 450 minutes of planning per week. So our elementary schools normally get about 200 minutes less per week. That's been going on for years. In addition to the elementary schools getting much less planning per week, they have lost time before school as we have sent students directly to their classrooms. They also walk their students to specials, which takes time out of their planning. They walk their students to lunch, to the buses and cars after school, when typically secondary students go to those locations without a teacher. They have people stationed on duty in the hall, but they're not walking them. I met with elementary school principals today, and I highly recommended that they limit after-school meetings to 1 day per week, knowing that some meetings that must be held, such as IEP meetings. I also recommended canceling all unnecessary after-school meetings as soon as possible until October 20th, 2020. I don't recommend the 1 day per week for planning and cleaning. I believe we have a great cleaning plan and to keep students and staff as safe as possible. Financially, losing a day a week in the cafeteria would mean that the school nutrition staff would need to take a 20% pay cut for the day a week they weren't working, or we would have to lose other staff to offset the loss of about $8,500 a day that's needed for the cafeteria staffing. This could total between $230,000, around $230,000 in lost revenue that would have to be replaced in the budget. I am recommending that when we return to school on October 20th, that we shorten the elementary school day by 1 hour to give elementary teachers an extra hour of planning. This change would not be permanent. We would reevaluate in December to see if we need to continue that, and we can continue it into the second semester if needed. The end of the workday time for staff would remain the same. So, for example, we have people here from Mount Olive. If they normally get out at 2:20 and it takes 20 minutes to get the kids off campus, their proposed dismissal, or I looked at the wrong, yes, 2:20, if it takes 20 minutes to get the car riders off campus, they would have from 1:40 to 2:40 as a dedicated planning time. When I met with the principals this morning, I stressed this would be sacred time for the teachers. That there would be no IEP meetings, no MTSS meetings, no SIT team meetings, no staff meetings. If someone were to call the office, they would say, I will give them the message at 2:40. They would not be given messages. I would recommend no office hours during this time. An hour of dedicated planning each day, which would be 5 hours a week, in addition to what they normally have. So in summary, I've listened to the parents, I've listened to our teachers, I've listened to our administrators. Now, again, I know the fluidness of this situation has been problematic, but I must restate that if COVID-19 numbers stay intact until October 2nd, I would propose we move to Plan A for elementary schools on October 20th, 2020. I propose to shorten the day by 1 hour in elementary schools from October 20th until at least the end of the semester, but we could revisit that and maybe extend it to the end of the year. But again, I want to remind everyone that if there's a COVID-19 spike in a classroom, a school, or in the district, we may be required to change our plan for a day, a week, 2 weeks, or longer, depending on the situation. So if there's an outbreak in a classroom and teacher and multiple students are affected, that classroom may need to be closed down for up to 2 weeks. If a school were negatively affected, multiple teachers were affected, we may need to go Plan C for 2 weeks. If a number spiked in the district, we could go back to Plan C. We have done Plan B, we've done Plan C. If we have to adjust, we can do that. But that's my recommendation at this time, is to watch the numbers until Friday, October 2nd. And then if we make that, if the numbers are stable, to make the change to go to Plan A on October 20th, Tuesday, October 20th, with the elementary day being shortened by 1 hour. Are there any questions?
Ms. Knight, we'll go around the room. Ms. Knight.
Thank you for the time and consideration and gathering the input and what you're doing, Dr. Rice. I mean, mainly just maybe comments at this point. I mean, I welcome the idea of bringing our elementary kids back, or Plan A. I support that, and I understand you wanting to wait as far as weigh out the numbers and how everything goes.
Ms. Knight, would you turn your microphone back on, please? Is it off now?
It's green, sorry. No, I was just saying, more comments as far as I understand waiting and keeping a look at the numbers, and I do support Plan A and getting our elementary schools, our students back in the classroom face-to-face. Their foundation and learning and studies show, you know, they thrive the most with face-to-face, and thank you.
Ms. Messick?
I like the idea of shortening the elementary day for a while to give teachers more planning time, and all staff that need that. So you're saying that they remain just like they are till October the 20th, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
It's status quo to them. So the big schools that have to share buses, see, this worked great in the smaller elementary schools, you know, where they can just dismiss and they're, you know, gone on the bus or the car rider. But what about the schools that have to share all these buses with the middle school and the high school?
The question was, and I'm restating that for the people online that said that they couldn't understand that. The question was, what about busing? Actually, the hour shortening the day for elementary schools would be beneficial for that.
Should be.
Because that would give an hour for the drivers to clean those seats before, because there will be more people on a bus.
Mm-hmm.
They have eased those restrictions. They still recommend doing an A day, B day on busing, but they will allow you to use the buses as normal. So if we go from 15 kids on a bus right now to 30 or 40 on the bus, that gives that driver time to clean those seats before the middle or high school would use that bus for the second round.
So it should work better, really.
It should give more time for cleaning.
And so that would be, what are the schools that do share the buses? I know Mount Olive shares with Chestnut Grove and West. Does West have their own buses or no?
No, they share with King Elementary.
King Elementary shares with West, Pinnacle shares with Chestnut Grove, Mount Olive, Poplar Springs shares with Chestnut Grove.
Okay, so Chestnut Grove's like the big hub. But will they be able to work that out so that this will work as equally for these people as it will the smaller elementary schools?
Yes, ma'am, it should work fine. Again, mornings will not be altered, and afternoon that gives them an extra hour in between those two routes, so it should work out better.
Okay, well, I think that's a good idea. And I do think that's a good idea to have that as protected time. Because people need time to plan. And that's all the staff needs time to plan, all the teachers. Not just classroom teachers, but other people too. They all, some people go to 2 schools. So they need time to plan too. So I think it's a workable situation.
Okay. Ms. Tedder?
Thank you, Dr. Rice, for the survey that you sent out. I appreciate that. I'm sure the teachers do as well, the elementary teachers. Some questions though. When you say if the numbers are stable, we would move to Plan A. What do you consider stable, and who's going to make that determination of stability?
Several factors would roll into that. One, I've, again, been on multiple times a week calls with the health department, but it also comes down to, do we have the staff to run school between our bus drivers, cafeteria workers, teachers? So do we have the staffing to make school happen? Have we lost, large portions of classrooms? Again, so far, we did not feel, knock on wood, the effect in week 1 of B. But we would continue to monitor that. There's not a magic number. It's just an overall, how is this going? Can we still have school? In consultation with the health department, have we seen spots in our numbers that can be attributed to our schools that we need to not have it at that point? And I would be in touch with you as well, as board members. But there's not a magic number of, if we have 14 cases, we're fine. If we have 15 cases, we shut down. There's not a magic number.
Okay. What are we doing for the teachers who have been gone, who have had to go into quarantine because of positive test results or exposure? And I need to ask you about the board report we got because it says 0, and I don't think that is accurate for this week.
Well, that information that I'm given comes from the health department, and we had 2 people tested last week, and both test results came back as negative. And unless they have not updated my spreadsheet that I look at, then I'm not aware of a positive case from last week. Again, I'm aware of some negative test results, but not a positive. But that was one part of your question. What was the first part?
Well, a positive from last week, I do not know about, but before we went to Plan B, and it is still, the effects of that are still lingering, so.
Correct, they're in isolation now. They're due to another reason. So that went into the isolation number, not the quarantine number.
Okay.
And I don't want to discuss that person publicly, but I'd be happy to discuss it with you privately. But to my knowledge, the numbers are correct, based on the information.
I want to know how you were documenting those numbers was my question.
The health department is documenting, I'm reporting.
Okay. On cleaning days, would we still be Tuesday, Thursday for elementary schools?
Yes, ma'am, unless we've got a special request to move it to another 2 days a week. We could do it Monday, Wednesday, but Tuesday, Thursday has been the designated day. But Dr. Taylor and the group are working with principals if there's a specific request.
What time are teachers to be out, elementary school teachers to be out of the building on cleaning days?
4 o'clock.
So they would get out at 1:20? I mean, the students would leave at 1:20 and then they would have until 4 o'clock on those days?
Depending on the school, yes. They have different dismissal hours. The latest current dismissal time, workday ends at 3:15 at one elementary school. Half their group gets out at 3:15, half their group gets out at 3 o'clock. Most of them are all done by 2:55, 2:50, 3 o'clock is what the scheduled workday is. I am not insulting teachers. I know y'all work a lot longer than that. But they're not supposed to leave before that. And if you drive by our parking lots, they're there much later. And so I realize that. They are there on weekends, Saturdays, Sundays. I see cars in parking lots all the time. So please don't take that. I'm saying that y'all are waiting to run out the door at 3 o'clock. But that is the scheduled end of the daytime. And that's when they start working on love at that point. As I heard someone say this week, pay people what they earn because there's no way we can pay them what they deserve.
Very true.
And Ms. Tedder, in full transparency, this is Dr. Taylor, by the way, that 4 o'clock number only applies to schools where maintenance is actually providing the disinfectant, the spraying. 5 schools. So the other elementary schools that have more than one custodian or are doing that duty at the school, it may be after 4 o'clock before that takes place.
That's what I was gonna ask, if it could be pushed back, or later time, maybe those custodians could come in later, or, a second shift, if you would.
I'm sorry.
Like that.
We are allowing principals. We have given them, for example, from the beginning, we've talked about the time frame of 5:30 roughly. We have talked with individual principals, and we are giving them the opportunity to set that schedule if their staff is doing that actual activity or duty. So for example, if I'm at Poplar Springs, and that's one of our larger elementary schools. If Mr. Jones has assigned that duty to someone, it may start at 5:30, it may start at 6 o'clock. Mr. Goins referenced 4 o'clock because we do have 5 schools that do not have enough staff to do that without assistance from the maintenance department. So that's where that number 4 o'clock came from for those 5 schools.
Okay.
Mr. Goins, go ahead and add that, please.
Mr. Goins said that his staff, they start earlier in the day and they finish about 3:30. That gives them travel time to get to the school. Instead of, going home, trying to change clothes, then come back and work for 45 minutes. That tries to keep them some continuity in their day so they're not going back and forth to work all day.
Okay, you referenced IEP meetings a couple times, and that IEP meetings would not be scheduled for the after 1:20 or time?
They would not occur during the sacred planning period.
Okay.
That part is, again, I am trying to protect that for the teachers. That's, again, something I've heard loud and clear from them, and I want to protect that time.
Understood. And I'm assuming that is for the regular ed teachers' protection that needs to attend the meeting. I would think that that's where you're getting some concerns about time being used up that they need for planning. But when do we expect the EC teachers to conduct these IEP meetings? And Ms. Collins maybe has thought about this and can recommend something, because that's going to be a scheduling difficulty for the EC teachers. And I totally understand from the Reg Ed teachers' point of view, but how are we to logistically have meetings then between 7 and 1 when we are going to be student focused that whole time?
They could occur exactly how they did last week. The only difference is, instead of kids being there from 1:20 to 2:20, now the kids would leave at 1:20 and the teachers would have planning from 1:10 to 2:20. At 2:20, they could still have an IEP meeting like in the past. It's just changing that last hour with students. There would be no students. That's the sacred planning time. After that or before that could happen. But again, what I talked to principals about today is working to reschedule those meetings so that a regular ed teacher would only be involved in like 1 per week. Now, again, that may not be possible with deadlines, but what I've asked them to do is to try to plan ahead during this COVID-19 crisis, not to have IEP week where we're doing one every afternoon. And then, so if we saw that's coming up in 3 weeks from now, to try to do one this week, one next week, one the next week. Again, trying not to have staff meetings, suspending sit team meetings for a month, unless there's something pressing that we can't do, to only have 1 day of meetings a week, so to try to work to schedule that, but the times would be the same as it was last week or the week before that. It's just changing the last hour from being with students to the last hour being planning only.
Okay. I just have heard from EC teachers, and I know they're sort of having to do, I think they're called ICPs now, so
the
in addition to...
ICPs were scheduled to end September the 11th. There's been some that have been rescheduled that are still occurring, but those should be over now for the majority of people for the district.
Okay, well, I just want everybody else to understand that they've been having to do, in addition to their reevals and regular annual meetings, they've had to do all of these other extra meetings, which is, they don't necessarily last as long a period, but a time as a regular meeting, but just as much, if not even more paperwork. And so it's just another thing that they've had to do when they've had to pull in a reg ed teacher to do that as well. So I sympathize with the EC teachers doing that, and I appreciate the reg ed teachers who attend those meetings. So thank you very much for that. Those were my main questions about Plan A, but I do have some additional questions about COVID concerns once we finish the Plan A discussion.
Don't I get to go? Here's my question, and then we'll let them join back in. How is this going to affect our hours of instructional education?
We are doing 6 hours and 10 minutes of instructional hours a day. We would expect an hour remotely at home that night with the kids. It may be, again, whatever a teacher assigns. If we assign them a book to read with their parent, it may be to review what they've learned during that day. But the expectation is once kids go home, they do an hour of work to keep of remote learning, if you will.
Okay. So,
but not online, not teacher-driven. It's here's your enhancement work, remediation work. Again, maybe reading it, maybe reviewing the lesson. It could be a lot of things.
Okay, so we're going to start this hour difference October 20th, correct?
That would give parents time to make, again, I could see some parents saying, well, now we've got to find an hour a day extra of childcare. This gives them a month to work that out as well.
Okay, I'm just, in my mind, when she spoke during public comments, it was, I'm having to answer emails, I'm having to do all this now. Now, once they come back and we're on Plan A, the email questions should decrease because the kids are in school, they'll just ask them in person.
Correct.
I'm trying to figure out how we assist and bridge that gap between now and October 20th.
Well, that's where I've asked principals to suspend all after-school meetings.
Okay.
To try to protect the after-school time right now as much as possible. And the principals were very agreeable to that.
Okay. We can see your mask without you didn't smile or frown either one, so you must be good, Mr. Bond. Okay. All right, Ms. Knight, round two.
Details of A, when do we hope to know? Were you given details by the state as far as, I mean, there's no way to social distance in our small classrooms. I mean, you know, so what are the guidelines they have to know? We can't tear down walls or anything, right?
From my understanding, again, from watching the press conference, they have said they've monitored the daycare facilities and that have done what Plan A would do, and they have not had outbreaks. And so social distancing is asked to be reminded, to acknowledge it, to respect it, but it's not enforced. So again, at some of our older elementary schools that have smaller classrooms, they may be sitting within 6 feet of each other. They may bring some groups to the carpet that are less than 6 feet apart. But it shouldn't be for long periods of time. There's, again, we're looking through what it means in the cafeteria, where we may be able to bring half or 3/4 into the cafeteria instead of everyone eating in their classroom, to some stay in the classroom so we can social distance a little more, but take turns with that. Again, some of those details, again, we just got the information Thursday night, and I kept waiting on the governor's order, and unless I've missed it, I can't find it. They have updated the Guiding Our Way documents, Lighting Our Way Forward documents, that has said you can put people on a bus in every seat as you used to, but if the bus only has, I mean, there's one of our schools that last year had 25 kids on the bus. well, don't put them in the back 8 seats and 3 to a seat. Spread them out as much as you can, and in that case, it still would be just about 1 per seat. So where you can social distance, do that. But nobody's walking around during that time with a rule, we're saying, no, you've got to move another foot apart. Because they realize that it's not that way. But again, from their research with daycare facilities, it's not been a problem. I believe the distinction that keeps being asked, well, what's the difference between 6th grade through 12th grade versus elementary age kids, that DHHS has looked at the younger kids in one group and those other teenage kids and above as adults. And so that I believe is their distance, but I'm certainly not trying to speak for Governor Cooper or Mandy Cohen.
Dr. Rice, face coverings and screens will continue as well.
Yes, face coverings and screens would still be the expectation.
Of course, yeah. Okay.
And in fact, the face coverings would be more important in a close contact situation. Where right now, if they're far enough apart, there may be a mask break in the classroom, they may need to wait till they go outside and recess. Or, again, it may look a little different than it is this week.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Messick?
I just have one quick question. Could you remind me why you're waiting until October 20th to start this?
Well, for one, to give daycare a chance to plan, for teachers to plan, our administrators have to revise their master schedule. Because, again, if we're reducing an hour a day, they can't just lock off the last hour. Some kids are getting EC services during that time. Some kids are getting speech services, exploratory teachers and electives during that time. So they have to create a new master schedule. That can't be just done overnight. But also we want to watch the health trends of Plan B, the effect of Plan B, for the next 3 weeks before we finalize that decision to move forward. And so then after we finalize that decision, again, that's where a lot of the parent planning has to take place as well. Also, in teacher responses, a lot of them said, I'm voting on Plan B right now because I think we should wait till at least the 9 weeks are over. We need to wait and see what the health trends are. So we tried to honor the voices of our teachers and say, okay, let's move it out 2 additional weeks until we can see those health trends for ourselves.
Okay, and then you said October 20th till, the end of the semester. What date would that be, the end of the semester?
It's the last day before Christmas break.
December what, 22nd?
Our first semester ends before the Christmas break this year.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate all the work you've done and all the answers. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Tedder?
Can I go on to the other COVID-related questions?
Yes, we're going to be going to action shortly thereafter, so.
Yes. I'll try to make it quick.
Or immediately thereafter.
FAQs
What's that?
that were posted on our website earlier. Did we take those off the website?
Did we take what off the website?
The FAQs?
Not to my knowledge, I didn't. I'm not aware of it. Did we take that?
I couldn't find them when I looked a little while ago. I think that it would be best if we put those back on there, and with any questions that come in, address them through that way, I think might be best.
I'm not aware they've been removed. We're all sitting here in the meeting. We'll look for that tomorrow morning.
Okay, I appreciate that. And I did hear that did you update that last list on to those that we got and that were answered?
No, ma'am. That was, from my understanding, from speaking with Mr. Rogers, one person asked a question, he answered the question to that person.
Well, it was a group of people.
It was one person asked one question, and that's not a frequent, that's a singular.
Okay.
So anything else?
Yes, I couldn't hear all that the speaker tonight said, but I could hear the concern in her voice, and I heard her plea on behalf of our teachers. And Dr. Rice, I appreciate all that you did for the elementary teachers. I think that this is a good plan for right now, and giving parents and teachers the time to adjust. And I do appreciate you breaking down the planning time between the elementary and middle and high school teachers. But even if we go on a plan A, we're still going to have some students who do not come back. And I heard you say 18% as of right now for the elementary. And we still have the other teachers who feel they are that they are trying to keep their heads above water. So I'm speaking for them. Would you consider, I guess, a flex day or anything for the other grade levels?
Again, a flex day has a lot of financial impact, and if we don't run our cafeterias one day a week in half of our schools, it's going to have a detrimental financial impact that's going to end up being a personnel impact with the amount of money that we would lose. And so we would have to cut positions to do that. And I think that our people are very much stressed as it is. And if I start making more combo classes, increasing class sizes, taking away teacher assistants, or those type items, it's going to increase the stress level. And so that's why I've not gone to a 1 day off per week. As we're all aware, with 19 schools and a lot of small schools, ADM is very important in those buildings. And, you know, to cut out positions would have an immediate impact on those facilities.
How do you think that other small districts are doing that then? Are they just going to ignore the loss that they have with their child nutrition? How have you, what are they doing to make up for that loss?
Well, different school districts are doing different things. Some have laid off people. Some have chosen to reduce pay for days not worked. Some have been able to absorb it in other ways. I can't speak to all of them. We don't share detailed financial information with each other, but we talk about ideas and concepts as we go into things. One school district back in the spring, they laid off all the bus drivers and cafeteria workers. We chose to make sure everybody got paid because all of our employees are valuable to us, and once they leave, they may not come back, and when things return to normal, we need all of our bus drivers, we need all of our cafeteria workers, and none of us want to say a 20% pay reduction. People get used to spending the checks they have, and so we're trying to make sure that everyone gets paid and gets paid on time, and so far, again, that's been a blessing with our district, and Ms. Moore spoke a while ago. We spent a lot of time making sure that between her and Ms. Jessup, make sure that, you know, no one's missed a paycheck unless they have chosen to. But anybody that wanted to get paid has gotten paid so far. And not every district can say that.
Okay. Next question. EC students, separate setting, have they returned 5 days a week at every school? Or how's that working? And if not, could parents of separate setting and some resource as approved by Ms. Collins, could they have the choice of coming 5 days a week?
Students are looked at their individual needs, and can their needs be met in remote learning or not? And again, we look at those as an individual thing. Roughly 20% of our student body are EC. If we let all EC students come back, we're basically running an A day anyway. With our A day, B day, and all EC, we would be facing basically the same thing. So we are looking at those on individual cases as where the needs can be met. We are serving students' needs.
Okay, so if a parent does have a concern, they would contact you or Ms. Collins?
They could contact their principal first off. That would be their first point of contact, would be their principal.
Okay, and then I'm just talking about the middle and high school at this point, since we'll be hopefully meeting the need of the elementary better very soon. The other thing about pre-recording lessons, are we allowing teachers to do that? Say, for instance, if you teach a science class, it might be beneficial to the students if the teacher is to pre-record a lesson, watch it with their students live, stop it periodically and explain it. Is that being allowed?
I can't speak to every classroom, but that is double work, if you will, to teach a lesson and then sit there and watch it. What we've asked is the teacher to just teach the lesson with a camera on them and answer questions as they go. Just, again, whether some kids are sitting in front of them or sitting on a computer screen, like people have said, I can't hear. We've been trying to be responsive to that. So just in the same format right now, I'm talking to the board and talking to you. If I had to pre-record all of that and then hit record, we've doubled my time this evening. So we're not trying to extend the time for teachers to say that you have to pre-record everything and then watch it later. We're trying to protect teachers' times.
Understood, but if they choose to do that, if it would be, in their opinion, easier to do instruction, could they be allowed to do that?
I don't know that we've micromanaged down to that level. I've not heard of anybody that's been told they've not been able to, but, you know, if they have a question, they can talk to their principal. If they got more questions, they can talk to Doug and Anna, Mr. Rose and Ms. McGee. If they got more questions, they're happy to call me. That's the chain of command if they're not getting an answer or don't have an understanding. But again, I don't know that we've micromanaged this down to that level.
That almost seems like a teacher's classroom management
for some to be able to do that.
I'm sorry, you and Mr. Rogers were talking at the same time.
I'm sorry.
I didn't hear your last comment.
I just concede where it would be beneficial to pre-record in some instances for some teachers.
If you were a high school teacher and teaching the same class 3 periods a day, yes, I could see how that would be beneficial. For an elementary school teacher to try to record everything that you do through the day and then just hit play when you get to school, that would double, triple their planning time and would not be a positive working thing.
No, I'm thinking about the 4 periods a day or 3 periods a day is where I'm coming from. And if it was the same prep, it would be easier for them. So I'm glad that they have that flexibility. And like you surveyed the elementary teachers, are you planning to survey the middle and high school teachers in the near future to see what their needs and concerns are?
If there's a governor's change, I mean, again, the change necessitated this one, and I could see doing a similar thing for the next level as well.
And I just want to make sure that if teachers do come to you with concerns, if they personally come to you, that you are going to be open to hearing from them and for them not to have any concern for their job security. I want them to be able to speak to you like our public speaker did tonight and openly and frankly honest with how things are going without any fear of retaliation or whatever over their head or thinking what they think at this time.
Since I've been here, any teacher that's requested to meet with me, I've worked out the time, I've gone to them, I've listened to concerns, I've discussed things with them. Not one person lost their job over or received a discipline letter or anything for having a conversation with me. The next one that happens will be the first. And it's never happened and don't plan it to be. I've tried to be as open and honest with people Since I've been here as I can be, that's why I'm in their buildings. I want them to have a relationship with me, to feel free to talk to me. Many of our staff have my cell phone number. Again, an email that was sent this weekend with concerns, I spoke with that person for probably 20 minutes on the phone later that day to ask follow-up questions. I always tried to be as open as I could be, and I'll continue to be as long as I'm allowed to serve as superintendent.
I appreciate that.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move us on to action then.
All right.
Approval of land transfer to the Stokes County Commissioners for potential green field site. Mr. Johnson, do you have anything to add before we move it to action? Before we vote.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, we have now received a preliminary survey of the property that the county has requested 4.065 acres. This is the property that the county manager has discussed with the Board of Education, part of the Walnut Cove Elementary School property, to be conveyed by the Board of Education to the county for use for the Green Box facility. I have talked with the county attorney. The county is acceptable to a provision in the deed that if this property is no longer needed by the county, then title will revert to the Board of Education. So it is my recommendation that the board approve a conveyance of the 4.065 acre tract to the county for that purpose under those stipulations.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. At this point, do I have a motion to approve?
Quick question.
Okay.
So if there are any public questions or concerns regarding that, then it will be the duty of the responsibility of the county. So if anybody calls Walnut Cove Elementary, we just direct them to the county manager or whoever they tell us to direct those questions to.
Upon action by the board, the county will own the property, not the school system.
That is correct. All responsibility, all concerns are those of the county.
So do I have a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve the transfer.
Thank you, Ms. Tedder. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Messick. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All right. Do I have a motion to approve the personnel report as presented?
I make a motion to approve the personnel report as presented.
Thank you, Ms. Messick. Do I have a second?
Second.
No, she beat you. Thank you, Ms. Tedder. Get that, Pam? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? So moved. Policy 2130, adaptation of the proposed administration regulation policy as presented by Mr. Johnson and discussed. Do I have a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve as we have amended it.
Okay. With the 2 month, for the record, with the,
Yes,
with the 2 meeting for now.
Yes, with the 2 meetings, consecutive meetings.
Okay, thank you.
Now missed.
Do I have a second?
I will second that.
Thank you, Ms. Tedder. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Item D, Mount Olive lighting retrofit.
I make a motion to approve the Mount Olive lighting retrofit.
Thank you, Ms. Messick. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All right. Stepping Stones contract as presented by Ms. Collins. Do I have a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve the Stepping Stones, speech therapy contract.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Tedder. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And septic tank for Powell Elementary with a total of $75,000 budgeted for the removal and replacement of the tank. Do I have a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve the Pine Hall.
Thank you, Ms. Messick. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Knight. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? So carried.
Mr. Rogers, I'm going to turn my microphone on. Mr. Rogers, one additional item. The board voted on the hours for the school day. I can change the hours of the elementary school day under y'all's powers to do that if you wish. We could vote on that if you wish, or we could even bring it at the October 5th meeting if you wish. But how would you like for me to proceed with changing the elementary day hours?
Mr. Johnson, correct me if I'm wrong, it's within his privy, under the Emergency COVID Powers Act.
It is covered under the Emergency Powers Act. The board could do that either way. It is basically, in essence, it is a change in the Emergency Powers Act is broad enough to cover that.
I'm just thinking if we vote, in essence, we have restricted some of your emergency powers. So I think we're cleaner going that way.
All right, thank you, sir. I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Next board meeting, October 5th, work session, 6 p.m., administrative office. Do either one of you wonderful young ladies anticipate not being able to be there? Because Ms. Tedder has informed us she will not be able to attend. If one of you two cannot, therefore we will not have a quorum and cannot have a meeting.
And that is when?
October 5th.
For the record, Mr. Chairman, I will be out of town that day.
We never quorum without you, we just won't have it.
You won't have a quorum without me, but I will just want to inform the board regretfully I will be out of town that day.
Okay. Do y'all see a potential scheduling conflict before I?
I should be fine. I will be fine.
Okay.
I'm fine.
Okay. I just wanted to cover that before we go into information announcements because they could be a sticky wicket. Okay.
Board, one piece of additional good news. The SRO grant that I wrote again this year, we have received above $150,000. That money has been allocated to our line item, so that is good news. You have in front of you all of the work days that are coming up. October the 19th, November the 3rd, of course, is election day, and if you'll skip down to the bottom, you see a listing of the school sites that will serve as precincts or voting locations in our district, and there are numerous ones. And as Mr. Rogers mentioned, you do have your upcoming meetings. I would like to make note that November the 2nd is an 8:30 a.m. meeting. That'll be a morning meeting. If you flip over, you have some additional fundraising requests that we would like to share with you for your take a look at and then approve at your next meeting. Just information.
Under the threshold.
All right.
Any questions?
Nope, we're good.
Thank you.
Any questions from the board from anything? This time I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Ms. Messick. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Knight. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Y'all have a great night. Be safe out there. Mask on, 6 feet.
Full transparency, that $37,000 state code, PRC 123, I believe, that's what we're looking to spend to use some of this contract nursing. I mentioned when you asked the question, what are we going to do to help our nurses out? We're working right now
we've identified a lady that I've talked with. She is interested in principal, just have to make the schedule work. But I'm confident that we can pay that contractor out of that.
Good meeting.